Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Crystal Felice, who has a doctorate in pharmacy and is a functional wellness coach. Today, we talk about everything surrounding gut health. And this is such a huge topic that everyone's talking about. And so we really go into depth into this topic. We talk about the correlation between gut health and depression, anxiety, mood disorders, insomnia, fatigue, and so many other things, including hormone issues, which I thought was really fascinating. We talk about the strong connection between the gut and the brain and what we can do through diet, exercise, and lifestyle changes to optimize our gut health. We really deep dive into this topic and we talk about leaky gut syndrome, parasites, the effects of gluten and dairy on the body. We bust myths around probiotics and we talk about so much more. I found this topic super fascinating, and so I hope that you'll gain some insight from this episode. Please, if you're enjoying these episodes, take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. It really does matter to us and it really counts. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Crystal. Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. I'm so happy to have you on today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about gut health, and I'm excited about this topic because I feel like it's a hot topic that everyone's talking about, but I don't think that there's a lot of knowledge around the topic. So I'm really curious what got you into being interested in this.
Yeah, my experiences kind of stem kind of far back. So I've changed my careers a few times now. So born and raised in New York, my first degree was in fashion buying and merchandising, and I've just always been somebody that's a big believer in if you are not happy where you are, where you live, your job, your situation, you do the most and what you can to change it. So, I was in that situation for 11 years and I was not growing. I wanted to grow as a person. I wanted to grow in my career. So, wound up, long story short, going to pharmacy school, moved to Indiana, did the 7 years for my doctorate, then moved to Oregon to work as a pharmacist. And being in retail pharmacy, I wasn't able to really have that one-on-one with the patients that I really, really longed for. Like I wanted to make a huge difference in their lives. And I was starting to get burnt out. And then my own health issues started to kick in. I was working 12-hour days. I was still getting up at about 4 o'clock in the morning to work out. I was probably getting maybe 5, 6 hours of sleep at night. Not the best quality sleep. And I just started having like 3-day migraines every month, a lot of gut issues, anxiety, depression, all of these things just started kicking in. And all throughout pharmacy school, I was super into health and fitness. I was in the best shape of my life. So I was like, what is happening to me? I didn't really drink. I wasn't on any medications except for birth control. So I had learned about some of the side effects of birth control. And then I also stumbled upon functional medicine because after these doctors were putting me on medication after medication, pain relievers, muscle relaxers, I was like, I need to figure out what's going on with my body. And sure enough, I found functional medicine. I found a practitioner to help me, and we did some gut testing. We did some hormone testing, and my gut was a mess. And I was like, whoa, like within about 6 weeks of a protocol with her, I was starting to feel so much better. I didn't need medications. I, could eat without being scared of what it was going to do to my stomach. And I was like, more people need to know about this. So I went back to school. I got certified in functional medicine with the intention of starting my own practice so that I could help others because this was just such powerful medicine that needed to get out there more.
Yeah. What was the gut health test that your functional medicine doctor gave you?
She did one called a GI map, which is the same one that I'm using in my practice. So it's super simple, just gets sent right to your house. You do it in your own home. You don't have to go to a practitioner's office or anything. And then you just send it off in FedEx. And then, a week or two later, you get your results. So it's super in depth. It's definitely more in depth than one that I've gotten from a doctor before. They only tested a
Yeah.
couple of things. This one is like pages. So it's super helpful.
And what information did you receive back on that test?
In the one, my very, very first one, I've done several since. I had Candida overgrowth, which is like a yeast infection in the body. Um,
Mhm.
and I had the beginnings of H. pylori. There was a parasite in there. I kind of had a bunch of things going on. There was definitely inflammation, gluten inflammation specifically. So we worked on that, and I had kind of just an imbalance of the good gut bugs too, because I had been on antibiotics for a lot of my childhood. So it kind of wrecked
Mhm.
all of that.
I totally want to hit on this parasite topic because I've been hearing the word parasites from so many people lately telling me that they have
I know.
parasites and they didn't know they had parasites. And so,
Yes.
what in the world is happening with the parasite thing?
Yes, and I was one that I was like, okay, I think everyone's just trying to make money off of it, like whatever, whatever. And then I
Hmm.
did some more deep diving and I was like, I don't leave the country. And they're like, it doesn't matter. So if
Hmm.
you play in a garden, which I do, if you have pets, which I've had my whole life, if you've, eat sushi, eat pork, eat salmon, things like that. I'm like, okay, yes, yes, yes. So pretty much everybody has them. We can go about day to day. Our bodies can handle a lot. Our bodies are super smart, but you can get to a point where you start to get some symptoms and you're just like, okay, what's going on? I just don't feel right. And I actually just did a parasite cleanse 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
So I can vouch that yes, we are filled with them. It was definitely a humbling experience, and it's something that I want to do at least twice a year because,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm going to keep living my life. I'm not going to get rid of all my pets. I'm not going to stop eating sushi,
Right.
So it's just a matter of doing it for maintenance. And honestly, what I've heard is that people in other countries, like, they do this pretty regularly. So it's not unheard of. And there are some gentle ways to kind of release everything. So
So
yeah.
I'm curious what you did for that cleanse. And then when you say it was humbling experience, I've got to know more.
Yeah. So the group that I'm in, um, we are very open with sharing photos of what's happening. So I kind of weeks before looking into it, kind of knew what to expect, what people were seeing come out of their bodies. But this one was a very, very strict diet. So you're pretty much just eating organic fruit the whole time. So it's a 10-day cleanse.
Mm.
You prepare the body 3 days before and after by doing like softer foods. You get rid of meat because as much as I love meat, it's pretty rough on the digestion. So
Mm.
you want to get rid of that. You want to get rid of gluten, sugar, anything that's inflammatory. And then for the diet, you're pretty much, you can have avocados. You can have some coconut like in the can. So that kind of helps keep you full. You have some tea, so it's some detox tea. And then you're allowed to have some soups that you make from veggies. They just have to be like pureed. So
Hmm.
I got an immersion blender and I enjoyed the soups. And some hunger kicked in, but I was pretty amazed at the energy because I love caffeine. And you couldn't have that on this. And I was like,
Hmm.
how am I going to survive 10 days without coffee? I woke up feeling amazing. So with this one specifically, you're using a tincture that has a bunch of herbs in it, and you're taking that twice a day. And you're also using a binder twice a day, which is super important. Anytime you do a detox, you need something to grab whatever you're releasing to help
Hmm.
you get rid of it. Because
What? Yeah. What is the binder?
yeah, so it's usually like a mix of like charcoal, psyllium husk, just things that will kind of form like a nice gel so that it
Hmm.
pulls things along with it. Because a lot of times people will do these detoxes, and this one was specifically parasite and heavy metals. So you especially do not want to do a heavy metal detox without something to grab onto that and bring it out of the body, because that can definitely get into other places in the body, especially the brain, and cause more problems there. So detoxes definitely need to be done, under supervision if possible. This one did come with warnings, do at your own risk. So there was that, but I felt amazing. I mean, you wind up losing like 6 or 7 pounds. I did. Some people lose like 15 pounds. Um, and it's not just the diet, it's just your body releasing all of this gunk and parasites and stuff. Because what happens is some of the stuff can build up and you get like what's called a mucoid plaque. And I was just like shocked that this stuff is in our body. But when you think about it, like our intestines are pretty long. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot in there. So, yeah, it was pretty amazing experience.
So, but without getting like super graphic, like what came out?
I personally had what they said, a lot of hookworms, which probably from animals. And then
Like, how
you
do you know?
do.
You can't
Oh
see
yeah,
them.
no, you see them. They
You,
come out dead.
okay, right. Yeah, I
So
figured.
luckily everything's dead. Um, you release a bunch of that, and then you'll just see some things like that are just worm-like. You can release like nests, so there were like nests of a bunch. And
Oh,
then there's a day that you do like a liver detox specifically,
yeah.
and you release like gallstones and liver flukes. So liver flukes are a specific liver parasite. And then the gallstones were wild to me because a lot of people, can get like their gallbladder removed because of gallstones.
Mm-hmm.
So doing this kind of maintenance can help prevent that. So you'll know if your body is not digesting fats really well. Could be a gallbladder issue. And they just come out as like these greens, look like stones, look like rocks.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, I definitely want to do that again because I know some people can release like hundreds. So
Okay,
yeah,
that's
it was
crazy.
pretty
Ah,
crazy what comes out. And my boyfriend's like, I would do it, but I'm not digging through anything to see what it is. So I don't know.
oh my
Maybe next time
gosh.
he'll be on board. But yeah, it's pretty wild. And I think it's worth it. Anybody can do anything for 10 days, so I think it's worth
Yeah.
it.
Wow. Okay, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh my God, that was all in me.
Yeah. You don't want to admit it, but it's there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. So are you practicing functional medicine? Like what is your practice that you're doing?
Yeah. So I pretty much when I sign people on there, they're just filling out a questionnaire of their whole lifestyle, life, diet, childhood, everything. So we I do that and analyze it along with some labs and just try to figure out what is the cause of some of these symptoms that people have had chronically. They want to get off medications because they know, they're not good for them, or they just don't want to rely on medications. So it's kind of getting down to why things are happening. Like for me, why did I have 3-day migraines every month? And, for me, it was like my hormones were thrown off. My gut is, which is so powerful with helping to release hormones and to help process everything, that was all thrown off. So that's why I pretty much start with the gut with everybody. We start with gut testing as the first step. And then
Mm-hmm.
we start to look at lifestyle. Like, are you stressed out? Because stress is
Mm-hmm.
such a big issue when it comes to all sorts of symptoms.
Yeah.
So, you have to work on that mindset aspect as well as kind of repairing the gut also.
So are you saying that your gut health can affect your hormones?
Yeah, it can. And especially in women, we have this cool group called an estrobolome, and they're really, their job is to break down estrogen and help get it out of the body. And if all of this can get unbalanced, the gut can actually reabsorb this estrogen, and then we can have symptoms of estrogen overload or estrogen dominance, where you see a lot of women with PCOS, with PMS symptoms, with moodiness, the bloating, everything that can come from that. So we want to make sure that our body has these good detox pathways and everything's getting out and everything's healthy, and that it includes the gut and the liver. They'll have to be supported.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do we know if we have gut issues?
So it can kind of present as several different things. So most people will just think of like, am I bloated? Am I constipated? Diarrhea? Like the basics of digestion. But it goes beyond that. So when there's something called leaky gut going on, where things can get back into the body that shouldn't be there, the body can start attacking. So we can get inflammation. People can get like pain in their joints. I'll see a lot of acne, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis. A lot of skin conditions are related to the gut. Um, and that's where we absorb a lot of nutrients. So you can get like hair falling out, thinning hair, um, a lot of symptoms that people might not really relate to the gut, and hormone imbalances as one as well. So it's not just the bloating that people might think of.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about leaky gut recently. And I've heard that you might not necessarily know that you have a leaky gut.
Hmm.
So how do
Yeah.
we know when we're supposed to get help with something, or when we're supposed to change our diet, or we're supposed to do a detox, or is there just like regular maintenance around these things?
Yeah, I mean, I think doing a maintenance is always a good idea. I'm a big believer in kind of the 80/20 rule, of trying to have 80% of your diet be really whole foods, healthy things, and then, leave the 10 or 20% for parties and, having a little treats here and there. I think that's great. But overall, like we really need to feed our bodies. I'm a huge believer that food is just fuel, and our gut are happy to keep our gut bugs happy. They need a good variety of fruits and veggies and fiber. So all of that, kind of needs to be a lifestyle.
Hmm.
But I think starting with testing is really going to be a good idea. It's not absolutely necessary. People can absolutely just do maybe like a 4 to 6 week gluten elimination, see if it bothers you, do a dairy elimination, see if you feel better. There's definitely ways to just do it on your own and just see, do I feel better? And you'll notice, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks, but you'll notice like, oh, my skin cleared up. Oh, I'm not bloated anymore. Oh, I'm not achy in the morning. I have a little energy in the morning. So you can kind of, play around with things and see how your body feels. Some people don't do well with avocados, like what's something that's healthy. So sometimes you have to play around and see kind of how
Hmm.
your body is reacting to certain things.
So it takes 4 to 6 weeks for what to happen.
So it's usually a good amount of time for any kind of antibodies or inflammation to get out of the system. So for people specifically that have big issues with gluten, even just one like slip up or something that was contaminated, that can cause inflammation that lasts several months for those people. So it's unfortunate for the people that actually do have celiac or just severe gluten allergies, that can happen. So you really need to give the body that time to get rid of some of that inflammation, and to start working all that out.
Hmm.
So it's a good time to see um, any changes in your symptoms.
And do you feel like all gluten is equal?
So I know there's been, I actually saw something yesterday that said that I think there was a study that found that some gluten intolerances were built up in people's minds. So that's another thing, going back to this mindset issue, right?
Hmm.
How powerful our minds can be. If you're seeing everywhere that people are saying gluten is evil, is your body going to react that way? And I do strongly believe that the brain is so powerful that way, that it
Yeah.
can be like, okay, I can't have this because it's going to do something horrible to me. Um, but with our current, if you're looking at like what our current wheat is, how it's processed,
Hmm.
yes, I do think that gluten can have an issue for people, just because I've seen so many people get benefits from removing it from their diet.
Yeah.
That being said, people that make their own sourdough, I have a friend that mills her own, they grow their own wheat. She mills it and then she makes bread from it, and her children have no problems.
Hmm.
So, you hear of people that go to Europe and they can eat all of the bread and the cheese and they feel fine. So
Yeah.
that's how you can really tell is something is going on with the quality of our food in the United States.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Yeah. I make loads of sourdough bread. I'm kind of known for that lately.
Yeah.
And I feel like the people that have trouble with gluten, like always eat my bread. And I feel like when I eat bread, it sits pretty heavy in my stomach. But
Hmm.
when I make my sourdough bread, it digests really well for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. The bacteria is so good in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about fasting. What are your thoughts on fasting?
So I think it can have its benefits for sure. I also think there's many situations where it's not super beneficial, especially those that might have some thyroid conditions or blood sugar issues. So you want to make sure that that gets stabilized. Overall, I think everyone should be doing at least a 12-hour overnight. I think that's
Hmm.
super safe. It gives the gut a nice break. Some people say, the 13 or 14 hour is like the sweet spot, but at least 12 hours between dinner and breakfast really
Yeah.
gives our gut that chance to repair. And that's why we don't really want to be snacking throughout the day either. So if you're sticking to, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're keeping it high protein, high healthy fats, you really shouldn't have those cravings in between meals. And that gives the gut a great amount of time to process everything, get it out there, and start repairing, because our gut is always repairing itself. But if you're consistently eating, if you're eating super late and then going right to bed, it doesn't get that chance for that repair.
Well, and then we have the blood sugar spikes throughout the day. We have multiple spikes, right?
Yes, yeah, and we have cortisol, which also releases blood sugar and glucose with it. So that's usually pretty high in the morning. And some people that have it like really high in the morning, they can really feel that crash in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So that paired with diet can really cause these huge tanks, and that's why most people get that slump in the afternoon and they need more caffeine or more sugar. That's the first thing they're going to grab for, when really we just should be balancing our meals properly.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on soy?
I think it's amazing. I think people were definitely scared, especially women. They think it's going to harm their hormones, but we need to look at the type that we're having. So a lot of processed foods get soy thrown in them. But if you're having something that's like tofu, like organic tofu, I love edamame, I love. Um, those are great sources of protein, and they're
Hmm.
great for the body. So um, in that sense, I think it's fine. I think it's just all of those like soy processed things that we need to stay away from, because anything
Hmm.
like that is just anything that's super processed. Our bodies are just not going to recognize it and not going to get nutrients from it.
Including protein powders or whey powder?
I do think that those are beneficial, but I also think that so many of them are filled with some pretty nasty ingredients. So I think it's super important to find a company that at least tests their powders, make sure that there's not heavy metals in there, make sure that they're not adding a ton of sugar in there. Some of these things are just so over the top sweet, that they're
Hmm.
just like candy. So you're not really getting a good benefit
Yes.
from that. But yeah,
Like
if
the
you're getting
protein
just
candy bar.
yes, oh
If it
goodness,
tastes
yes,
awesome, it's probably not great for
yes,
you.
there's something wrong. Yes, yeah, but also people need to realize that whey can cause issues in people that have dairy, that are like have dairy inflammation. So we need to remember that
Hmm.
whey is associated with that. It doesn't have as much lactose in it, but it still can cause issues for people. So sometimes just going to like a pea protein can be beneficial. Some people are really good with goat protein too. It does have a different taste, I will say,
Hmm. Yeah.
but it might be better on the stomach.
So let's talk about dairy. And then I also want to talk about the different kinds of dairy, right? The dairies that have been aged,
Hmm.
like your aged cheeses and your Parmesan cheeses, and then
Yeah,
maybe like your dairies like cottage cheese and yogurt, and then those cheeses in between, and then goat cheese and sheep cheese. Can we just go
yeah.
like, please don't tell me all cheese is bad because I'm a cheese lover.
I know. Actually, yes, they did find that the more aged they are, the less lactose they have. So, it is more tolerable to a lot of people. Um, Goat is one that I've heard is, a little bit more tolerable for those that have some lactose intolerance. So those are great. Usually it's like the softer ones that have some issues. But if you get a nice aged Parmesan, you should be totally fine with that. And then I'm a big fan of yogurt and cottage cheese. If your body can tolerate it, I think they're amazing sources of protein. And then in yogurt, you can get some of the live active cultures. But they're just, you get such a bang for your buck with those because, you can have a half or 1 cup and it's just jam packed with protein. And we need to keep those protein intakes up. And a lot of people aren't eating enough protein. So that's a great way. I'm seeing all of these clever recipes now of people mixing cottage cheese into everything. And it's kind of funny how things make a comeback. So now cottage cheese is popular again.
So how do people get their protein if they are vegan? So they don't eat meat and they're not eating dairy.
It's a challenge. That's where protein powders can come in. You have tofu. You want to make sure you're getting a good variety of things and not just relying on tofu. So you can, incorporate some lentils, some beans. It tends to be a little bit more of a higher carb diet because of that. Can be an issue. The main thing is what I see in my vegan clients is that they're lacking B12. So it's something that, and a lot of the amino acids that we get from meat. So it's something that might be needed to supplement with. And, there are plenty of good aminos out there and just, B12 supplements that can really help that. But super important to do it the right way and getting a really big variety. Not eating, I've seen the vegans that are just eat a bunch of processed stuff and I'm like, that's not the way to go either.
Right. It's all sugar and
Yeah.
processed. It's like, that's not
Yeah.
healthy. So, let's talk about how do we optimize our health with our gut? Like, where do we start? Does it start with taking a test and figuring out where we are? Does it start with elimination diet?
It could be. I mean, if people have the means necessary, I always think testing is a great way to go, especially if it's been something chronic. If they feel relatively pretty great and healthy, they don't have skin issues, they don't have digestive issues, everything's perfect. They're probably already doing all the right things, but something like H. pylori you might not even feel. So that can be something that can be super detrimental. You might just see it in your labs that you're kind of deficient in some vitamins and minerals. So really increasing fiber is going to be a big one. So I always have people just track where they're at right now, because if you increase fiber too quickly, too fast, you could definitely get bloating because you're going to be feeding those gut bugs and they're going to feel terrible. So, aim for a minimum of 3 grams of fiber per serving is a good way to look at it. But you definitely want to see where you're at first and then kind of, get up to 25 to 40 grams a day. And you'll see a huge improvement in digestion. And they've even linked it to weight loss and lowered cholesterol. So fiber in general just has huge benefits. Super important.
Yeah. And then what is this that you keep saying? Say it.
H. pylori.
H. pylori.
Yeah.
You're the first person where I'm like hearing this. So what is that?
It's actually super common. So this is a bacteria that likes to thrive in the stomach. And it's actually really smart in that it can hook into the lining and keep itself safe by reducing the stomach acid around it. So it can create like this little bubble to keep it alive. And this is where you could see where people get ulcers from. It's usually stemming from this guy. And we can get it just if you've had like food poisoning, contamination from unwashed hands or contaminated food. So it's something that can definitely live for a while without causing too many issues that you would notice. I recently had to treat myself because I just started having I was burping in the morning. As soon as I woke up, I felt like bloated and burping, and I'm like, what is going on? And sure enough, H. pylori was rampant. So stress is another big one that can cause it to kind of thrive, because when we have high stress, our stomach acid is going to be low. And we need a lot of good stomach acid to help break down food, to absorb nutrients, to kill bacteria so they don't get any further in the gut. And unfortunately, as we get older, we don't have as much stomach acid. If we're super chronically stressed, we're not going to have good stomach acid, and that's where H. pylori can kind of thrive. And then you'll get those downstream effects of all the good gut bugs kind of being all unbalanced. And you can have other pathogens kind of thrive in that environment. So, it's easy to treat naturally. Doctors, have like a triple antibiotic regimen that they'll use, but you can absolutely do it with natural antimicrobials and some diet changes and knock it out of there.
Yeah. And what are some of the other things, like if we're having gut issues, is it affecting our mood? Is it creating depression? Is it, you're saying it can mess with our hormones? Can it mess with our sleep? Like what else gets messed up?
Yeah, almost everything. Yeah, no, it can absolutely. So we make 90% of our serotonin in our gut. And while that serotonin doesn't readily cross the blood-brain barrier, our gut is needed to make all of the precursors to help make serotonin. And then we need good serotonin to make melatonin. So melatonin is our sleep hormone. So
Mm,
if we're not making good melatonin, then yes, sleep can be thrown off. I've seen a lot of patients on antidepressants and sleep meds, and they go hand in hand because the antidepressants aren't making more serotonin. They're just, keeping what serotonin you have in the brain synapse. So we are very reliant on our gut to help absorb nutrients, to help break things down, to help get rid of excess estrogen. So all of that can definitely be related. And when you think about it, when people just don't feel good, so if all of these things are kind of leaking back into the body is going to be in the background kind of fighting all of this off. And we might just feel kind of sluggish, fatigued, and that can lead to some depression and we're just not feeling great every day and just like, what's going
yeah.
on? Like, why don't I feel well? I'm dragging all day long. And it could be our body just kind of fighting something underlying that we're not even aware of. So that's why I do
Mhm.
like the testing, so we can see like what's going on. Is your body really reacting that bad to gluten that maybe you do need to get rid of it for a little while, repair what's going on, and then you can reintroduce it. So I still will eat gluten. Um, and you just keep feeding the good gut bugs and keeping everybody happy. So every now and then, do a cleanse, repair the gut. If you go on an antibiotic, make sure you're repairing the gut. So it's just, things to kind of keep maintenance on.
And how do you repair it if you've been on antibiotics?
So each person that I go with can have different protocols, kind of depending. So that's why I like to see the test, because people will think probiotics for everything, and honestly, they do not. They're not my number one.
Mhm.
Probiotics are usually towards the end of my protocol, actually. So there are a lot of what's called mucilaginous herbs, which is a crazy word for just natural herbs that's what they do. They form like a mucin. So our gut needs that nice lining,
Yeah.
that mucin lining. So they go in there and they can help to kind of repair that. But you want to make sure that any overgrowths are, killed off, and that all the good guys, we're repairing that. We need to bring in some diet changes, some lifestyle changes, and then work on slowly bringing in some supplements to help benefit the gut.
Mhm. How many times a year are you testing your gut?
I like to do it once a year. I think that's a good way to kind of get an idea of what's going on. Unless like something shows up randomly and I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
I might retest. But I think once a year is a good amount to,
Mhm.
kind of do it when you're doing your blood work. Just test that
Yeah.
gut too. And I wish it was part of our
Yeah.
annual.
What does a typical gut test cost?
Um, They can run about like 380 to 400 depending. You can add on some things to it. So the zonulin is one that I'll add on, which is a protein that's released in response to gluten. So it's kind of a good way to see if there is leaky gut. Can give you an idea. Nothing is completely conclusive with that, but I like to see kind of what's going on. You can test if you have an actual like celiac reaction to gluten. So that's another add-on. So there's a couple of add-ons, but that's about what it costs. And with my program, I just include it in there because everybody needs it. So it's just included.
Yeah. I think about 2 years ago, I found a functional medicine doctor. It's the first one that I've gone to. And I went in because I thought I was in perimenopause and my system was going freaking haywire.
Yeah.
And I was dealing with like, oh my gosh, hot sweats and insomnia and mood changes and brain fog, and like the list went on. And meanwhile, I went to her and she tested me. A normal doctor wouldn't have caught it because I was within range, but my thyroid was low. She put me on a thyroid medicine. It changed everything, like everything corrected. But she also was optimizing because I was like, let's biohack, right? And so she did so many pages and pages and pages of labs. And she was amazing. She was like, oh, your B12 is at this range, but I prefer it to be within this range. And so then we could like look at the labs and then 6 months later, take them again, biohack them, try to take some supplements, fix things, to optimize the labs. And I felt better so much faster. And I really like how she looked at the labs and how, and my issues corrected so quickly because of that. And I don't think a normal traditional family doctor would have caught that because everything was within range, but things weren't optimized.
Now they're coming out with medications for hot flashes. So that's probably going to be the first thing that the doctor is going to prescribe is this brand new medication that's going to cost a lot of money. But no, that's amazing. Yeah, with functional medicine, there are optimal ranges of labs. So that's why, people will come to me and they're like, my doctor said my labs are normal, like, everything's fine there. And I'm like, no, let me take a look. And sure enough, I'm like, no, things are going on. So you want to catch things before they get out of these ranges because the normal ranges are so wide that by the time you're in a high flag of a range, you've already had this condition probably for years. So I like to look at trends, like, has this been increasing every year? Is your blood glucose slowly going up every year? Then, maybe insulin resistance is happening. So it's really important to have them looked at properly. Because
and you can have a lot of issues that aren't presenting yet. Like being pre-diabetic or something like that, where your labs will show that, oh, there's an issue coming, but you're not presenting any symptoms yet. And if you don't correct that over time, that's going to catch up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love looking at like glucose and A1C. And if I can get a fasting insulin, that's a great lab. I think everybody should ask for a fasting insulin too. We want to see our blood sugars are the root of so many things. So you'll often see people with diabetes also have issues with blood pressure. They have high cholesterol. And honestly, it's because those blood sugars, that glucose it's such a spiky molecule. It gets in there and it starts making all these micro tears in the blood vessels. So cholesterol is great. Cholesterol is anti-inflammatory for us. It gets sent in to start repairing. And then lo and behold, we have high cholesterol now because it's trying to repair all of these blood vessels. And then now we have plaques forming, and then, there's less blood that can go through. So now the blood pressure goes up. So everything starts, they're like, okay, here's another medication for that. When, hey, why don't I just go back and work on the blood sugars and then maybe everything else will kind of come down. So I really want to catch that. That's one of the first things we tackle is how to avoid those blood sugar spikes, how to lower these blood sugars, because sugar is in everything. I did a sugar detox in January and I was like, what can I eat? It was wild.
I did one too. I did a sugar detox for a year. I did fruit sugars, but I read labels on everything. Everything has, especially like bread and
salad
like
dressing.
dressings.
I'm just like, Like, what?
Yeah. And then what would happen is every once in a while I'd go to a restaurant and I would order like a sandwich or something, right?
Hmm.
And then I would bite into the bread and I almost like want to spit it out because the bread tasted so
So sweet.
sweet and I would have never caught it before, but I was so
Mhm.
sensitive that I was like, whoa, this
Yeah,
has like loads of sugar in this bun.
it's wild how your taste buds change. You're just like,
Yeah.
whoa, like I can't even eat that anymore. It's
Yeah.
wild.
I do. I don't love doing um like detoxes or whatever, like eliminations, but I think every time I do it, it's super eye-opening, like
Mhm.
that, like the sugar one that I did, or if you're cutting out carbs or processed foods or anything, how incredibly hard it is to do and how much of it is in your
Yeah,
diet and how we get like acclimated to a poor diet so quickly.
yeah,
So
it's
I
so
think that
true.
those are good like check and balances for us.
And I think like even just somebody doing like a 10-day, I think that's a great way to start. Just do 10
Right.
days. See how you feel, especially with a sugar detox. 10 days is a perfect amount of time to
Yeah.
see how you feel with it out of the body. And then if you can add on another week, do it. Just, the benefits are just amazing. People will sleep better. They have more energy. You don't want the body relying on like exogenous sugars all the time.
Yeah. I heard somewhere too that it takes about like 3 days to knock out those cravings. So there's like intense cravings for
Hmm.
sugar, and then after 3 days, it kind of passes.
Yeah, 3 days it's usually I've noticed that too when I do even when I just did that parasite cleanse. The first
Hmm.
3 days are rough and then the body's smart, the body will adjust. But also when you do have like candida overgrowth that will show,
Yeah.
you those people will have intense cravings for sweets, for like cheeses, for alcohol. Like you get these cravings that you're just like, I don't even feel like myself. And that's, that can definitely be something going on with the gut that can cause
Yeah.
that.
So there's like a lot of hype lately about liver cleanses, and I've
Hmm.
been hearing that they're really intense emotionally,
Yeah.
physically and emotionally and mentally and all of that. What
Hmm.
do you know about liver cleanses?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of supporting the liver. When I was on birth control, I had the beginnings of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease just from being on birth control. So our livers need support. A lot of people think that they do their own thing. We don't need to do cleanses because, livers detox on their own. But no, they definitely get bogged down. Like they process all of the hormones, all of these sugars. Fructose is only processed to the liver. Our
Mm.
bodies don't use it. We need glucose, not fructose. So our livers definitely need support. I don't necessarily think like you have to do continual cleanses. The parasite cleanse that I did do, like, did have a day for the liver and gallbladder. But yeah, it's our anger center. So you definitely can feel. I remember the day I did the liver, everything was pissing me off that day. I was just like, I don't even want to be around myself. Like it was wild,
Hmm.
because it really puts you in tune with that organ for the day. But yeah, that's our anger center. So if you have anything like kind of built up, that's a release for anger for that. So I did some like qigong to help kind of release things and relax. But I think castor oil packs are like my number one favorite for supporting the liver and digestion. And they're not a medication or anything, and they're amazing. So
What
that's
is
one of my
that?
favorites. Um, so you can really do it on your own with just like an old flannel or shirt or something. I personally like to use a company that makes like the wrap itself so that you could just reuse and wash the wrap. It makes it a little easier. You do want to make sure that the castor oil is of really good quality. Like it needs to be organic. It needs to be in a dark glass bottle, hexane
Hmm.
free, cold press, all of that. But you just put about like 1 to 2 tablespoons on this pack, or you can rub it on. So for the liver, you want to do like the whole like right quadrant, like the lower right area. And then you
Hmm.
just put this pack on, tie it up. And then you want to make sure you're wearing like all black or something you don't care about. So I have like a
Yeah.
whole castor oil outfit that I put on. And then you can put like a heating pad on it, on top, that can help, or like put a towel and then a heating pad and just relax. So, I tell people at least just give 30 minutes just doing nothing, just
Hmm.
relaxing. And you'll get some of the best sleep of your life after. I
Huh.
always
Interesting.
sleep beautifully after I use it. So I try to do it a few times a week. But it was definitely one of the first things that I used when I started the functional medicine protocol to really
Yeah.
help after coming off of birth control.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, I'll have to try that.
I love it.
Are there any myths that we need to bust around gut health?
I think definitely the probiotic thing. 'Cause that's one of my
Mm,
top questions. Everyone thinks they need to be on one. They are promoted like crazy.
yeah.
When we can't expect it to go in there and just repopulate years and years of
Hmm.
imbalance. It's just it doesn't work that way. I think just getting good fermented foods in your diet. So like people like kimchi or some sauerkraut, kombucha, things like
Kombucha?
that. Yeah. So getting some good quality fermented things. I like to make my own sauerkraut. So you want to make sure that it's actually fermented. So usually if something includes vinegar, it's not properly fermented. So usually it
Mm.
just needs like salt and time and it'll become fermented. So when I make my own, it's just salt and squeezing it all out, put it in a jar and you just burp it every day and wait until it
Yeah, I've
turns into
heard that.
sauerkraut.
That's super healthy that you can just kind of throw even your vegetable scraps in there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way. Then if you get a good yogurt that has good live and active cultures in there, that's also great. So you want to do things as naturally as possible and not rely on a capsule all of the time. You
Yeah.
want to feed the good gut bugs with getting good fiber in there. Getting like green bananas are really good. They have prebiotics. So if people hear that term prebiotic, that's
Hmm.
something that feeds the gut bugs, and probiotic is the
Yeah.
actual bacteria. So you want to feed them, apples, onions,
Uh-huh.
garlics, leeks, the green bananas. All of that is
Green
really good
bananas
to help.
taste so bad.
I know, I know they're not the greatest, but they're super good. And then getting things that are bitter. So I love arugula, dandelion greens.
Mm,
Kale is considered in that too. Those
yeah.
are great to help stimulate digestion. I use an actual like bitters tincture right
Yeah.
before I'll eat, and that helps stimulate things, gets the digestive enzymes going, and it just supports digestion. Some people will do like apple cider vinegar
Yeah.
before a meal. That's amazing in not only helping to stimulate the stomach acid, but it helps lower the blood sugar spike that you'll get from
Yeah, I've
meals.
heard that.
Yeah,
I've heard that, like a tablespoon or something,
yeah.
right?
You just
Before
throw it in
or
like a shot
after.
glass of water,
Yeah.
and you just chug it about 15 to 20 minutes before. There's studies that show even if you do it before like a piece of cake, which is probably
Yeah.
not the greatest taste to have in your mouth before it, but it can lower that blood sugar spike tremendously. So I
Yeah.
think it's great, but it has to be the Bragg's brand, a good brand,
Yeah.
not just like your everyday apple cider vinegar.
Yeah. Well, how do people find you to work with you? What are some of the things that you offer?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. I will post on like LinkedIn and Facebook, but I'm at functional.health, PH with a PH. And then my website has all of my offerings there. I do a free 30-minute Zoom call so that we can kind of go over what's been going on, what's bugging you, the next steps.
Literally bugging
Yeah,
you.
yeah, literally bugging you. Um, and then we could do, a 90-minute. I have the option for either like a 90-minute assessment and wellness plan, or we could just jump right in to my like 3-month protocol where we can get that gut tested and see what's going on in there and start healing and repairing and working on stress and sleep and everything because it's literally all connected.
And people can order that gut test through you, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's included in my big like 3 to 6 month program.
Yeah.
So I just will send it right out first thing. But yeah, we can absolutely do it separately too as just testing it. But you really need that support because these protocols can take a while. So they're about like a 3 to 6 month to repair. Nothing is super overnight. So people need to have some patience with it, but it's so worth it
Yeah.
because then all those symptoms go away. You just feel amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Crystal. This has
Yeah.
been so good.
Yeah.
I'm super curious now about that gut test for myself,
Yeah.
and I've learned a lot from you today. So thank you so
Awesome.
much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.